Good morning, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with my dear friend MarBeth Dunn. Hi, MarBeth.
Hi, Kathy. So great to be here with you.
Oh, yeah. So MarBeth is a sister from another mother, and we don't get to spend enough time together. But when we do, our energies are very magical together.
Oh, yes.
Things happen.
Oh,
So
yes.
we'll have to plan a rendezvous, bringing boyfriends, husbands, whatever, and or not.
Well, I actually love, you're in Boulder, right? And I love Boulder. So
Yep.
we'll have to work that out.
Yes. Well, I want, if you don't know MarBeth Dunn, you're going to be so glad that you're introduced to her work today because her work is quite amazing. She is an amazing healer. When I met her 10, 15, 20 years ago, whatever long ago that was, she was able to pinpoint as a medical intuitive things stuck energy in people's body and just on the spot release them. Now she's got more amazing tools to share with you today that allow you to take responsibility for your own healing and your own growth. She's a expert in somatic healing and intuitive energy mastery, and she's helped empaths, sensitives, and high achieving women release stress, anxiety, and trauma by reconnecting with their bodies and regulating their nervous systems. And right now, our nervous systems are being tested to the max. So this new book that she has in the background, Awakening the Healer Within, is one of your paths to healing. So, MarBeth, why don't you share a little bit about what your journey was, so that they get to know you as a person, and then I definitely want them to get this book.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I'm happy to share. Um, I have always been an empath and an intuitive. I didn't know what an empath was, and I thought there was something wrong with me. And I was constantly anxious. I had panic attacks, and I didn't know that a lot of what I was carrying was actually from other people. But I did have my own trauma that began in my very early childhood, where my father was very abusive to my mom when I was a baby. And she was sleeping. We were sleeping. She had shoved furniture against the bedroom door because she was terrified that he was going to kill us. So that was, and as an empath and feeling all that energy, it really set a course for my life where I didn't feel safe. And so over the years, I ended up on a mountaintop in Haiti with my husband. That's the former husband. And I didn't really feel safe there. I had a lot of anxiety. And so I spent my days sketching and drawing. I was MarBeth of Haiti. I was a painter and a designer, and I was known, throughout Haiti. And I spent my days from early in the morning to late at night sketching and drawing because that was the only place I could feel safe and focus my energy on something other than the anxiety and panicky feelings that I had, and which also manifested in asthma. So it was a very difficult situation. And I knew that there had to be a cure, right? There had to be a place where I could resolve this. My thought was, I have to go back to the source of what this is so I can clear it, which wasn't really the best idea, because when you're in a place of fear or you don't feel safe and you're pushing to resolve something, you're creating resistance, which makes it worse. And that's what happened to me. But I did discover this wonderful tool called a pendulum. And I don't know, there you can see it. And I'm not going to swing it because the camera doesn't like that. So the pendulum enabled me to communicate with my subconscious, with my body intuition, my body's knowing. And as I explored through yes or no questions, because that's the only way that you can ask questions and receive answers with the pendulum, I would ask yes or no questions, and the pendulum would respond. And it was amazing just on its own. I wasn't directing the pendulum consciously, but yes for me was a clockwise circle. No was horizontally back and forth. And I don't know was back and forth. And I don't want to answer was the counterclockwise circle. So I was able to understand some of what my issues were just by this wonderful communication with my subconscious. So that was really the beginning. I didn't realize until actually this last year that I was a somatic healer. That I didn't know there was a name for what I did that was somatic healing. And but anyway, that is the beginning of how I became on this somatic healing journey.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, what I wanted to ask is how you were aware enough to realize that it was your creation, that you could heal it, and that you weren't a victim, because so many people are either attached to other people with their story energetically, and you almost have to cut it to even work with them at all. But I had to go through a whole avatar series of classes to get to what I wanted to share. On page 20 of the Kindle in your book, it says an affirmation says, I take full responsibility here and now for everything I think, feel, say, and do as I actively create my new future. And how did you get to that? Because that took me, I didn't get to that till I was in my 50s.
I understand. And I actually am an avatar master.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
Wizards. I did all the way to wizards.
Yeah, Avatar was wonderful on so many levels. But in that point, I was reading everything I could find. Now, you have to remember, I was living on a mountaintop in Haiti and I was isolated, but there was a little English bookshop, and I found a book by Ken Kai's. And that was, I can't remember, A Path to Higher Consciousness, right? And so that was similar to one of his affirmations in the book. And it really opened my eyes. Here, Ken Kai's was a paraplegic. And here he was coming from a place of great wisdom. And also, A Course in Miracles was very instrumental for me. I woke up one morning, and until that morning, I just felt like I was completely trapped in my life. But that morning, I woke up and I realized that my thoughts had power. That was huge. When you realize that, oh, I can change my thoughts and I'm going to have a different outcome. So that was really huge for me. And it's really so important to take that responsibility, because unless you do, you're going to be stuck in the same patterns.
That's right. But we all do have some sort of block to awakening to the inner child work or the subconscious programming, or just the especially as women being the good girl and all of that because of conditioning. I think a lot of that's breaking down right now in society.
Yes.
The media is showing people the reality of things, and people are somewhat cynical. A lot of people are waking up and they're angry. They did everything they were supposed to do, and the story didn't have a happy ending, or didn't have the ending they anticipated. Could you
Right.
talk to that? Because I think that's one way that we could help so many people right now. I believe that many people are waking up to be empaths as the first stage of awakening.
Hmm.
These light codes coming from the sun are activating the general public worldwide, and they won't have the skills without your book um, to determine whose it is, if it's theirs, or and take the responsibility of theirs,
Absolutely.
someone else. So, could you talk a little bit about that? How you're seeing these times? Because I do want people to feel empowered with what you're offering. I think it's amazing.
Thank you. Well, about 20% of our population currently are empaths. Although I do believe we all have the capacity to experience the energy of other people. When you go to a party, for example, and the energy is high, you are feeling it and you want to participate because it feels so good. So your body is like, yes, yes, yes. You go to another scenario and suddenly you're feeling the hairs rise on the back of your neck and maybe on your arms, and you're suddenly aware that it doesn't feel good. Maybe it doesn't even feel safe. And your body again is saying, here's the energy here. This is what I'm perceiving from other people. And it's letting you know. So you are perceiving energy. So when you are an empath and you don't, I didn't know I was an empath until I became a Reiki master. So we're going back about 20 years ago. But for the earlier part of my life, I lived in Haiti, where there was quite a bit of dark energy, the voodoo scenario. The people were lovely, but there was this undercurrent. And being highly sensitive, I couldn't go places with people without feeling, oh, I don't feel good here, or I'm having an asthma attack here. I don't feel safe. So I've learned with my body, I'm also clairsentient. So my body will warn me before I go someplace. You know, I feel like my chest is constricting, and then I just tap in and it's like, okay, is it okay for me to go where I'm going? And I use the pendulum, or I use muscle testing now much more. I don't really use the pendulum because we can get into muscle testing also. But I can tap in and just say, okay, what do I need to do to make it safe for me to go there? So one thing that I will suggest for empaths, when you don't want to take on other people's energy, you don't want to take on their emotions. You need to have a barrier that's going to protect you. So I imagine, your imaginations are so powerful that I am wearing an Iron Woman suit with a helmet and the boots and the gloves and the whole body armor. And the only thing that's going to come in is love and positive energy. Now, I may be aware of other people's issues, but I don't take it on the same way. So I think it's really important that you protect yourself. Another thing I used to do, and I suggest it very often to clients, is to put yourself inside a disco ball. So it reflects everything out. And you only allow in love or positive energy or anything that's going to benefit you in a positive way. So, as an empath, take care of yourself first. You know, as they say on the airplane, put the mask on first. Then you can help other people.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I have to say the journey as an empath, I've been highly sensitive since I was a little girl, and I
Right.
was aware of a huge space of energy. So I could read the energy in the next room. If I was at a restaurant, I could hear the conversations at the three tables around me. Yeah. And I'm sure that was to keep myself safe somehow. I mean, it was a fear response that I learned. I think what you're offering is a way for people to feel, maybe benefit from feeling the energies around, but not be sidetracked by it. Not
Exactly.
feel like they have to fix the other person or get into that same energy level to be with them, because sometimes you'll come in all in a higher frequency and someone else you end up adopting their.
They suck your energy.
Well, they don't even know
They
you
don't
kind
know
of
it.
let them. You kind of unconsciously let them.
Absolutely. We if we're not aware of it and our energy is up here and their energy is down there, very often we want to bring them up here. We want to bring them up here. So we want to stay up here. But if you're not aware of it, you may suddenly drop. And you may be aware that that happens with particular people in your group. For example, there could be the person that every time you're around them, you just feel like this whole energy drain. So what do? You put yourself in that Iron Woman suit or inside a disco ball, and I just send them love. And when I feel the first time it happened that I became aware that I'd taken on somebody else's energy, I was subbing for a friend of mine at a spa. She did Reiki at the spa, and she asked me to cover for her. So when I went there, introduced myself to the staff, and the massage therapist hugged me. Well, the next morning I woke up with a terrible headache. Now, it didn't feel like me, and I don't get headaches. So I went back over that morning and then the day before. And when I came to the massage therapist, that interaction, I felt a click like, oh, that's whose energy it is. And so what I did was I went through a motion of pushing it out of my body and and I sent her love and I sent her peace and I just sent that up to the light. I didn't want to even deal with it. And and I felt myself again. It was that easy.
Right? That's perfect. I agree. So much of what you offer in this book and in your teachings, the way you work with people, is by giving these wonderful story representations that others can sense the truth of it or their own path in the stories, and then be open to the remedy. Because we don't a lot of people don't want to take responsibility for their part in their journey.
That's very true. They want other people to do it for them.
Right, right. Well,
Yeah.
that's what this book is fabulous, because it really is a guidebook to start you on a journey to have the tools. And there's so many tools in this book. The very back of the book has pages of references from all of the criteria that and historical data that you've intertwined into this book, plus these wonderful stories at the beginning of every chapter that bring the reader into knowing. It's a sensing of what you're trying to convey.
And the most important thing that I want to convey is that you always want to be safe. You want to feel that you are safe. Otherwise, you're creating resistance. Now, your body loves you very much. Your body loves you so much that it takes on your emotions that are traumatic. It takes on your trauma. It takes on your anxiety. It takes on your stress, and it will hold on to it. It will give you messages to let you know what it's holding on to and say, hey, you know, those knots in your gut or that tenseness in your shoulders, you're a little stressed and you really need to listen to this. So we do need to listen to the body and we need to understand its language and what it's trying to tell us. Because if we don't, well, let me give you an example, which is actually kind of ironic and funny. So years ago, I had a radio show on the Law of Attraction radio network. And I loved my show, and I was going on it. I had gone on I was scheduled to speak on a Law of Attraction cruise. I was very excited about it. But before we left, I thought, I'm going to be gone for X amount of time. I better get all my blogs done. I write all my blogs. I've got to record all the radio shows I need to do in advance. And I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. And when I would sit down to do it, I could feel my chest just getting tight and really I could feel the stress there, and I totally ignored it. And I was like, no, I'm going to do this. So I was not listening to what my body was trying to tell me. I stood up and I stepped on a plug, that had come out of the wall. And I heard a pop in my foot, and I spoke on the Law of Attraction cruise from a wheelchair. Now, I did not need to do the blogs. I had recordings of shows that could have played while I was away. I did not need to put that stress on myself. And I did not listen to my body. So that's what happened.
So one of my healer friends always says the body doesn't lie.
No, it doesn't.
And that's the truth, right? But you have to be sensitive enough and aware enough to pay attention to it, and not just push through, is what you're saying.
Yeah, every time I've pushed through, it has not gone well for me. That was just one example.
Get in a wheelchair on a cruise, yeah. But you still could go eat all that yummy food.
Oh, I could, but that was the irony was that it was a Law of Attraction cruise.
Yeah, you're allowed to be human. You're allowed to be human, and the experiences will continue until you're not here anymore. So, yeah.
And maybe after.
Yeah. Well, yeah, different kind of experiences, that's all. So, inside your book, I wanted to have a little sharing on the techniques for emotional processing, because that's there's so many great things in this book that there's even a bonus chapter that walks you through all of the things in a condensed form, so you can read the whole book and then go to the bonus chapter. But I thought if people knew, if you could just share any ideas of things that people might get a sense of, yeah, I can do that.
Sure.
From your book, that would be great.
So a couple of very, very simple things that you can do if you're feeling anxious and you're not feeling safe. There's something called a butterfly hug, which actually comes from EMDR, which is another technique to work through trauma. So if you loop your thumbs and you create a butterfly with your hands, with your two hands, so you can put them right underneath your clavicle, and then just pat your hands rhythmically while you're taking deep breaths. And I can already feel you just going, ah. Yeah, you just feel that rhythmic tapping on either side from your hands, and just breathe. And it just creates that sense of safety. It takes you down several octaves, and it feels wonderful, doesn't it?
Yeah, I love that. I also, inside your book, you talked about the breath of fire too.
Yes.
And I was taught to do it this way with your arms up and try to. I used to be able to open it more.
Oh, okay. I'm a Kundalini yoga instructor and as well. And so what we learned to do was just to inhale through the nose. And what you're doing is you're contracting your diaphragm and basically pushing it up. And it's just pretty rapid. And it would just go like this.
Oh.
And then you stop and you take a deep breath, and you can feel that lightheaded feeling, but it also enables you to absorb quite a bit of oxygen. And in the oxygen, there is prana or energy or chi or ki, whatever you want to call it. It's in the oxygen. So
Yeah.
when you are absorbing it, most people, when they're stressed, they're up here. And when they're breathing, it's very shallow in the upper part near your clavicle. So it's called clavicular breathing. And when you start to, so many different breathing techniques, I share quite a few in the book. When you start to open your body up to more oxygen, it automatically calms you down and it grounds you. And grounding is also wonderful for bringing you back into your body. When you're in an anxious place, you're up in your head, or you might not even be in your head. You might be out there. You know the term, "I'm beside myself." Well, you might be. you know. So what the breathing does is it pulls you back in. And there are wonderful grounding techniques that you can do where you would just imagine a cord from your body going down through the tip of your spine or through your feet or both, going down into the center of the earth. And when you just imagine that going all the way down, you feel yourself moving down and grounding, and then pulling that energy up from the earth. I see it as love, just coming up from Mother Earth into the soles of your feet, the tip of your spine, just moving up into every cell of your being. I just felt you, Kathy, just go, ah.
Yes, he did. And I love the a lot of qigong. I worked with a qigong master who is also an MD, and he said, "Breathe in love, breathe out harmony." And when you do that for any amount of time, too, that's amazing. The breath
Sure.
is one of those wonderful things that you can do at any point. You can do it waiting in line at the grocery store, because it isn't invasive to anyone else. You can calm yourself down in the car. You can go to the bathroom and get out of a situation in an office, and just take the benefit of this vehicle that was designed to create love and happiness here, and get back into it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've been actually, I just recently took a training in breath work.
Oh,
Yeah, from a Qigong master. So yeah, I'm still working through it, but always, always interesting to learn new ways of expanding the breath and expanding our personal power. It's also important.
so you are, inside your book, you're talking a lot about the inner child and
Mhm.
working with the inner child. Could you share a little bit about that so that people understand the benefit? I mean, when healers or people talk about shadow work, a lot of times that's too scary. But inner child work somehow is so nurturing. It goes through all the, to me, it's more releases obstacles.
It does. It's a beautiful, inner child work is beautiful. And I first recognized that a lot of my trauma happened before I was even verbal. And so how do you deal with that when you're not verbal? So what I did is I used my pendulum or my muscle testing to find out where I was, how old I was when this particular feeling that I was feeling in my body, maybe that feeling of not feeling safe, or that feeling of some sort of trauma, and I don't know what this feeling is in my chest. And And so I started to imagine that my inner child was in front of me, and I could visualize that child and reached out to her and see if she would be willing to come closer, maybe sit on my lap. And a really dramatic experience occurred. I was flying to see my daughters in New Mexico, and I was flying from Florida with my partner. And as we were on the flight, I started to feel these feelings in my chest, a lot of it felt like emotional pain. And so I just asked, is this my inner child? Yes. And she was around 2 years old. And so I just found myself stroking her hair and on my lap, imagining her there, stroking her hair, stroking her back. And my partner looked over at me, and here I am on an airplane, with all these other people. And I just said, just leave me alone. And I just sat there, and I don't know how long I was there, just stroking it. But with every stroke, I could feel it in my body. And and then all of a sudden, I felt incredibly expanded. I felt really good. And then when I was visiting my daughters, each of them individually said to me, Mom, you are so present with me. You've never been this present with me. It wasn't safe for me to be that present with them before. But suddenly that had been released through the inner child work, and it was suddenly safe, and it created a whole different kind of relationship with my daughters. It was really beautiful.
Well, that's also a beautiful example of when you do the work, it affects generations
Mm-hmm.
because they picked up, whether they're conscious of it or not, that inner child wounding as well growing up with you. So, so by you releasing it, it also released it in your heritage.
Well, when my older daughter was a baby, I remember just being sleeping almost all the time, just holding her and sleeping. I had a lot of fear that I would somehow hurt her
Oh,
because
wow.
when my mom was experiencing the abuse and the trauma with my father, she shut down emotionally, and she wasn't there for me, or she was maybe a little rough, not abusive, but rough or cold or shut down. She was, and I don't blame her because she was dealing with her own trauma. However, that affected me as a very sensitive little empath. And so I had that, like, I better keep a distance here because I don't want to hurt them. And that was what I had been carrying all my life until that plane ride, and everything shifted.
That's perfect. And you have the perfect partner to help you. Okay, so I got a couple questions.
Sure.
One, how how much of this processing can you do by yourself, or how much of this do you feel you need a coach or you need an experienced healer in order to release the subconscious blocks that are holding you back?
Those are great questions. And I does everyone need a coach? I don't think so. However, a coach can help you move things through much faster. For example, when I work with my clients, I feel where they're holding their issues in their bodies. And when I tap in, I know exactly as an intuitive what it is. So I can clarify things just like in a heartbeat. Okay, here's what's going on here. So and then I can also, safety is the most important thing when I'm working with someone. The most important thing is it safe for us to pursue this? And if it's not, we don't go there. We're just like, okay, what can we work on here? And then we just move down to where it is safe. The first time this happened was really incredible. Um, Harrison had set up this beautiful office for me on his balcony when we were first living together. And I had this lovely office overlooking a lake. And I had a strategy call with a guy in Germany. And I'll call him Franz. And I talk about this in my book. And so we started out, just like a normal strategy call. How are you? What's going on with you? But as I'm talking to him, I'm feeling this heaviness in my chest. So I recognize it. This is grief. And so I wrote down, he's experiencing sadness and grief. As soon as I wrote it down, it vanished. And now I'm feeling this stabbing under my left shoulder blade. So I recognize he's feeling betrayed. So I wrote it down. Well, I got a whole laundry list. I call them indicators of what his body was telling me from across the ocean. That was pretty amazing. So now I've got this whole list of like 8 or 9 different issues that he's experiencing from emotions that his body is holding on to. And so I asked his body. Well, first I asked him, I said, I'm an energy healer and I'm feeling some things that I think, I could help you with. And he said, okay, go for it. So I conferred with his body across the ocean. I said, what do you want me to do here? His body told me, I did it, and I felt everything go click, click, click into place. And I'm blown away. I'm sitting back in my chair. And so anyway, that was the beginning of the intuitive energy mastery, because it was like, wow, that was the first and only time that everything went click, 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 click into place. But it was like, what an amazing gift. Because when I can receive the energy, and I wasn't taking any of that on, I was feeling it and it disappeared. I felt it. It was just like this, like I was a computer and I was receiving that information. And as soon as I did, boom. So yeah, so that's basically what I'm doing now. And since then.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I have to ask about the different levels. So you used to say that everything was built, your emotional balance and your health was built like an onion. And there are all these different layers, just like an onion has. And you peel it back thing by thing by thing. Could you talk a little bit about how this work, the intuitive energy mastery works versus the peeling back? Because talk therapy seems like it doesn't, I don't know if it works the same way anymore because I don't use it. But
I don't use it either. I mean, I do to some point, but truthfully, do we need to get into this story? Maybe, but not usually. Usually the body is communicating and just says, okay, a lot of times people really feel like I really need to tell you this story.
Yeah.
But it's not necessary, because I can feel like, okay, you've got, these knots in your solar plexus. So there is definitely a power issue here in another, whether it's your relationship with yourself or is it in your relationship with another people. What's really interesting is learning about the chakra system. I kept learning and reading that relationships were in the second chakra, but I always find them in the third, because that's where, we have the power interplays in the third chakra. And that I think is really, really, important. So in terms of peeling the onion, your body will only release what it's ready to release. It will let you know what it's ready to release. And it's not good to go pushing, for something deeper. Wait till your body to talk to you about it. And if you're feeling that pain in your knee, well, you may not need a knee replacement. It may be that you're moving into a different direction and your body's saying, you're moving forward and I don't feel safe about your moving forward in this direction. So it's always good to confer with your body when you're getting information. It's all just information. There's no judgment here.
Okay.
If I'm feeling like a heaviness in my chest, my first question is this mine? Is most often 85% of my clients are carrying other people's stuff.
Right.
that just is. And so that's the first question. And then if it is mine, then the next question is this a good time, or is it safe for me to continue with this? And if it is, then we dive in.
Perfect. What is your opinion of karma cleaning? Because
Oh, yeah.
so much of this, if we take responsibility that we stood in line to get these bodies to be here right now, we picked the DNA strands, we picked it all. What were we thinking? But anyway, we picked the whole storyline, and it's all available to be appreciated, loved, and released anything that you don't like, right? So
Yes.
could you talk about karma a little bit again? I think some people kind of put that in their story, but
Mhm.
yeah, could you talk about karma?
I do want to talk about karma. And I do, first of all, what I find very often is that people hold issues from previous lifetimes in their field, and I can help them release them. That's very easy. Or it may be something they're carrying from a biological ancestor. Again, very easy to release. Um, I had what I did want to talk about in terms of karma. It talked about my father being quite abusive, and I didn't have a relationship with him. I tried several times, but it didn't happen. And when a friend of mine told me that my father wanted to connect with me from the other side, I wasn't thrilled. And I had a little energy room at the time, and I went in and I down on a cushion and I opened myself up because I figure if he's coming to me from the other side, I should at least hear what he has to say. Well, suddenly, Kathy, I am surrounded by the most amazing love I have ever experienced. And I'm blown away. I'm like, what is this? And he says, I've always loved you. I will always love you. We contracted before we were born that these were the roles we would play in each other's lives. And I knew I could feel the truth of what he was saying. I could feel that love that was all around me. And I just had tears were streaming down my face. And I forgave him because I knew what he was saying was true. Why would I hold on? And then I realized that everything that happens to us comes from love. Everything comes from love because of that contract. And so forgiveness or release of the negative feelings that we have about issues and other people, it's just automatic. From that point, it totally changed my life.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I think, yeah, in your book, you talk about the Course in Miracles as well as a resource for people that are doing this work, this personal work that allows you to have a different perspective on your innate power to co-create the life you really want versus the one that you feel you're in, and that you can wake up every morning as a new person, as a new opportunity, right?
Well, we're limitless beings, but we limit ourselves. We
Yeah.
keep ourselves really small. But when you think about how expanded we could be bigger than the universe. I have a meditation that helps you become bigger when you just keep growing and growing, and suddenly you're enveloping the whole universe. And we have that capacity, but the tendency is to stay small
Yeah.
and contained and maybe a little fearful. Success can be scary. It can feel unsafe, and we can hold ourselves back and really keep ourselves from being successful for a number of reasons. I have time for another story.
Yes, of course.
All right. So several years ago, I was starting a new radio show. And I wanted to have, it was on iTunes, and I wanted to make new and notable because I wanted to have that badge up on my podcast or my radio show. And I couldn't get there. I tried, I think we had 6 weeks in which to get it. And I would get to number 3, maybe number 2, but I could never get there. So on the very last day of the 6 weeks, I was sitting there, and I wondered, huh, am I holding myself back here? And all of a sudden, I had this vision of I guess like Lakshmi, a goddess of abundance, and I saw her, and she was draped in this white fur, and she was dripping coins and jewels, and she's over on the other side, and she's just lavishing it all on these young children over there. And I'm like, what am I, chopped liver? so, so she eventually comes over and she hugs me, and I'm feeling it, and I realized, well, before this, I realized, like, why am I what's holding me back? And I realized that I equated success. I went ahead with my story, but with the ending, but I equated success with my grandfather and my father, who I didn't like. And I attributed those qualities to them, and also a woman who I knew would basically stomp on her own mother if it interfered with her success. So that to me was like, if that's what it is, I don't want it. So when I thought, well, what if it doesn't have to be that way? What if it could be, really something wonderful? That's when I had the vision of the money goddess, just coming and surrounding me. So anyway, I still, forgot about this was the last day of the new and notable contest. So I went to bed early, and my daughter called me and she said, "Mom, did you listen to that podcast that I told you about?" And I said, "Oh, no, I didn't. Let me go get my computer." And so I opened up to listen to that podcast, and there I am as number 1 on new and notable,
That's
because
so
I had
cool.
release the energy. I had what was
Wow.
holding me
I
back.
think I need to do that. So I want to, we're going to need to wrap up soon. Although I don't want to, because I love being with you, but I want to make sure that people know about your website, and I'm going to put it, let's see, do I still have it up? What happened? There it is. Let me put it here so that people can find you easily. So here we go. It's MarBeth Dunn, DUNN.com.
And you can also order the book on the website. It'll take you over to Amazon.
And then the other things that you can find out if you look through all of this is you're going to see wonderful testimonials. You're going to see that you can get a free book on her site. You can also see, I think somewhere, here's the book. You can do a 60-minute call. You can do in her media, you can see that MarBeth has been featured in all these documentaries, and she's going to be in a couple more. Do you want to talk about those too?
Sure. The last one that I was filmed for is called The Art of Manifestation. Mm-hmm. But I was also filmed for The Frequency of Miracles and The Frequency of Longevity. So that was pretty cool.
Fantastic. Well, I can't wait to watch everything that you're doing. And I want to just give you all the loving energy I can towards your contributions, because I really think that what you're doing is you're making things that used to be a little too difficult to understand. You're putting them in a very understandable and usable form for everyone through your stories in each chapter, and the tools that you're sharing, and the references in the back for anyone who's a linear thinker and wants their brain to be massaged. They can just look through pages of references where this was not just MarBeth's opinion. There's peer-reviewed science behind so much of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's scientific and it works. That's the best part, is that it works. So I have a bonus chapter. 21 has 21, bonus chapter has 21 different somatic exercises that you can do, which makes
Yes.
things easy, after you've read the book and you understand. And I also have a video page to go along with the book.
Huh?
So, which is very cool. So when you buy the book, there's a, I believe, there's a link in there. So you can just go into the link and then you can see some of the exercises. So to understand how to use a pendulum, how to use the muscle testing, how to use the emotional freedom technique. So, and I'll be adding to that.
Wonderful. Well, I love everything that's in there. I think it's really a toolkit for people that are starting this journey or on this journey, because everyone is being asked to clear their stinking thinking. And, and it's possible in just a few minutes of time if you make yourself a priority, love yourself enough to share, to understand that you are a gift in this world, instead of a burden. So many people are still working through all of that, and loving yourself and doing mirror work. And you have so much stuff in this book that even one thing would shift people.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
That's why I wrote it, because I wanted to share my legacy, is to share this with you. And if it makes a difference in your life, then I'm just so grateful.
Well, I'm sure it will. And it's a good reminder for any of us that have been on this road for a while to be more loving and take better care of ourselves as we're doing our things. Time is speeding up. People that are sensitive are getting great downloads right now. And we're being called to step up into our magnificence. And this is a beautiful path to that. So thank you so much, MarBeth.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, sure. So one more thing. Could you make sure that everyone knows the best way to get a hold of you so that they can
Sure.
connect with you if they want coaching or healing, or if they want the book?
Well, I think the easiest way is to go directly to my website at marbethdunn.com, and you can have a sample session with me, a full hour. It's not a sales pitch, and it's just, I think, $97. So that's for a full hour. And I work very fast
Yeah.
because I can feel where things are and I can help you release them. And then also, I have a program coming up in about a month to a month and a half. And if you reach out to me, you can reach out to me. You could MarBeth Dunn at Gmail is probably the easiest.
Uh-huh.
And let me know that you'd like to participate. I'm going to have a group program happening soon, and we'll be
Wonderful.
doing the somatic healing techniques. So I'll be guiding you all along.
Well, that'll be an amazing gift. And there's so many of us that have similar things to clear. It's part of our humanness, I think. So that doing it in group is a fast way to get those issues
Absolutely.
released. And there's always more to do somehow. That's why I don't think we're ever done. I think we just get to be more and more expanded in
Yes.
worldview. And then we're not in judgment. We're not in anger. We're in wonder. Every day is a wonder and a gift. And that's what I'm hoping people will get from your work, MarBeth. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. So everyone, please, if this would help you or your family members or any of your dear friends, please share this information so that the more people can get the advantage of this work. MarBeth's the real deal. Thank you.